call this presentation A History of StageCenter because lots of people tell it differently, as I found out. There's one particular story that I'm going to relay to you later that is completely wrong, which is the way that I've always heard it. So we'll get into that in a bit. So first of all, this is one of the earliest articles, the clippings in the paper. Now, before I go into all the slideshow, I need you to know that when you take a piece of newspaper and glue it to something else, it stays there forever or it's destroyed. So all of my slides are actually photographs of the scrapbook. I apologize for the quality thereof. So this is one of the earliest newspaper articles about us. It talks about Vic Weening and all the other people who got involved in trying to start a theater. And the idea is that in 1964, they first started talking about it. To read the newspaper clippings from 1965, it actually says 1965. I don't know who to believe anymore, but it's fine. So our logo says since 1964 on it, so we're going with 64. But apparently, Vic Weening, and I've got a list here, William Andrew, Louise Roach, Sol Klein, David and Valerie Woodcock, Wanda Desa, Rebecca and Wendell Landman, and Brooks and Annalise Kofer got together and organized this theater. And it was always called StageCenter, so that's good. Some places change their name. There's nothing wrong with changing your name. I'm just saying it's always been StageCenter. From 1968 to 1984, StageCenter was in the second floor of the golf club, which is probably where you guys are more familiar with the location. But we'll get into the moving into in just a minute. This is the list of the original officers and the board: Victor Weening, Frank Coulter, Harold Dreyfus, and all those other people there. And our memberships at the time were $5 for one person, $7 for a family, and people would vote. You had the ability to vote at meetings. I don't know that anybody ever took them up on that. We have annual meetings and we invite people to come and participate and vote. People don't stay, so they think, I guess, we're doing well enough on our own. So our first production was presented in the Bryan Civic Auditorium because we didn't have a home yet. And it was The Hollow Crown, and tickets were $1. And this is our entire first season: The Hollow Crown, Dirty Work at the Crossroads, Fantastics, Night of January 16th, Reluctant Debutante, and Only an Orphan Girl. If you look at this photograph, you will see 1, 2, 3, third from the left. That's Randy Wilson performing with the Barbershop Quartet Oleo for the Dirty Work at the Crossroads production. Fantastics was an early musical that we did. I believe it's second season. The reason I'm showing you this is because of the fact that it took place at A&M Consolidated High School Auditorium. So the first one, the first production being, where it was, and then this here. And this is just some of the photographs from the production. If you see the top left photo, the gentleman in front, that's Wendell Landman. And if you see the bottom photo, the gentleman facing the crowd, that's Frank Coulter. He was a character. I remember one time we were giving him a ride home one night, and I said something about Aquafresh toothpaste, because they had just added red to their stripes in the toothpaste. And he said, if I used that, I wouldn't spit for weeks. So this is Wanda Desa. She played the Reluctant Debutante. She was 35. And the reason that is interesting is because she used to tell a story about how she had false teeth. And she was on stage, and she was a debutante, 35 years old with false teeth, and one night her teeth fell out right there on the stage. So she just picked him up and put him back in and kept going. What do you do? That's what you have to do. So this is our first melodrama. I'm sorry, not our first. Second melodrama. Only an Orphan Girl. And so this was in the old Woolworth building. And this is a telegram. In the scrapbook, there are several telegrams. Whenever we had an opening night, Wanda or somebody else would send a telegram congratulating them on their evening, even though she could have just walked over and said, well done. But it's fancy, so that's cool. So then this is our second season, Odd Couple, Haunting of Hill House, Once Upon a Mattress, Best Man, Eastland, Piers of Driven Snow. Now this is an interesting season for us because you see 1, 2, 3, 4 productions, The Odd Couple, Haunting of Hill House, and Once Upon a House, three, and Once Upon a Mattress. Those were all done scattered around town. But, I'm sorry, let me go back. So this is a drawing for a set. But the reason this season is interesting is because The Best Man, we actually opened that's the show that we did at the first show we did at the golf course. So this is the year that we got our own building. And this is a drawing for the set for The Haunting of Hill House, which was Allen Academy, I think, I'm not sure. Anyway, I just had to put this one in here because I love Buster Keaton and he was in it on Broadway. This is a letter from Bill Andrew and to the city people asking for use of the municipal building because it wasn't being, not the municipal, the golf course building was not being used. And so they sent this letter to him, the one on the left, and then on the right is the newspaper clipping indicating that they did go ahead and approve that use for the building. Now, I point this one out because this is a poster. This was like one of the original posters that they did. I'm not sure if they ever put it on display because if you'll see, it's not StageCenter, it's StageCenter. So it was in the scrapbook, so I put it there. It's directed by David Landman, and this is something that I want to get into as well. Families. There were so many families involved in the theater. The Landman family, Wendell and Rebecca, they had 2 sons, and David and Rick Landman were the 2 sons that also got involved and were heavily active in the theater. So another thing that I wanted to point out was that we don't just do plays. We've always had other stuff going on as well. There's this theater workshop. They were talking about having people come in and learn how to perfect their acting. So we've always been interested in helping the community that way, and also it makes our shows better when you know how to act before you get there. Another thing that we did was it's the Texas Community Theater Association. I don't remember the exact, it's written in there, but I don't want to stand here all day. But we actually took Trip to Bountiful. It was scaled down to a 1-act play, and they took it to a competition in San Antonio, and we won, except for we actually did not. We actually, Baton Rouge won, but it's maybe we got someplace or other, I don't know, because on another clipping that I found, it says Baton Rouge is actually going to the national. So, but we won something. Now, I put this slide in because this is a list where in the paragraph where it says a look at the past, this is a thorough list of all the shows up to that point and where they were performed. And so we've got the Bryan Civic Auditorium, Triangle, I guess that's the Triangle Bowl, Triangle, I'm not sure about that, Consolidated Auditorium, Brazos County Courthouse, Triangle again, Woolworths, Civic Auditorium, A&M Consolidated, and then StageCenter Theater. And I like that because it just says StageCenter Theater. It doesn't say the golf course, or whatever. It's just stage, that's what it's called now. And I like that. So this is also a homemade poster, considerably better than the last. But the interesting thing about this show is it's an original play that was written to be performed by the people at StageCenter and for the public. So that's another thing, is that we have had many original productions as well. So I put this slide in just to point at the headline. StageCenter does Jewish comedy. The name of the show was Enter Laughing. It's the story of Carl Reiner getting into show business. It's not the story of a Jewish guy. I mean, he's Jewish, but I think it's interesting that that is the headline that they went with, rather than, you know, StageCenter opens with Enter Laughing, or StageCenter does a comedy, you know. So I put this slide in because it's important to me, because the head of the Department of Architecture was picked as the president. And so if this were now, then I would have to see him at work every day and at the theater every day. But I don't know the man. He's gone. You know, that's where I am. This is talking about the memberships. Again, the memberships have not gone up at this point. They're still $5 per person. Now, our memberships now are $25 and up, and we don't talk about, you know, like the things that you get to vote, 2 persons, 1 vote, non-voting, etc. It's just $25 and up. That is Wendell Landman. I put that picture in there because I like him, and I like that picture. Now, this is Harvey, 1972. The reason I put this in is because we're getting ready to open Harvey again. It's going to be October 4th, and it runs October 4th through the 20th at our new location. And if you look at the woman in the bottom, well, to the left, that is Rebecca Landman, Wendell Landman's wife. And she is one of the founders. Now, in the 1972 season, it's when we started selling season tickets. Prior to that, especially when we were moving around and not knowing where we were going to be or whether we were going to have a full season, we didn't know if this was something that we could be sure about. So we couldn't sell season tickets to it. But now we're selling season tickets. The reason I point this out, rags to riches, pay attention, remember it. That's all I got to say. Now, this is another thing that I wanted to talk about with special events. Like I said, we don't just do plays. And especially throughout the history that is cataloged in the scrapbooks, there are a lot of musical reviews and things like that. So we did a lot of special events. We do 1 or 2 a year. Something that we're getting ready to work on is production that we can't actually talk about yet because we have to raise the money to get the rights for it. But basically, it's a play in which it's one actor walks out on stage and is then handed the script. No preparation, knows nothing about the show. And if anybody has seen the play, then they can't do the play. So we just picked the cast for that, and that's coming up in January, and it's going to be a fundraiser for us. But we have to raise funds to have the fundraiser. So. There's that. Also, although it's not us doing it, the haunted house downtown every year, that is something that our board president started doing 8 years ago, and their proceeds are benefiting us. And a lot of people that are involved with StageCenter are involved with the haunted house as well. I want to say that things change and things stay the same. Lion and Winter, biggest bargain. This woman says, and I'm going to read it down here. I'm going to read this whole thing. I know where the townspeople of Bryan College Station were on Saturday afternoon, for the parking areas of shopping centers were jammed. But where did they all spend Saturday night? This I wondered as I sat in StageCenter's theater awaiting the start of The Lion in Winter. The small theater was only half filled. The biggest bargain in town could be found right there in that little theater. The performances I watched were as good as those of many traveling troupes, and in the case of one performer, even better. And the admission prices was only a fraction of the $6.50 to $9 one often has to pay for performances that are often not commensurately better. I want to tell you, our ticket prices have gone up. They're no longer, $2? So I urge those of you who have not seen this splendid production to give your date, your wife, your friend a pre-Christmas treat. Take them to see The Lion in Winter this week. You will not be disappointed. I repeat, it's the biggest bargain in town. This guy didn't like it. This guy says it's an imperfect diamond. So this is the reviewer for the Eagle. And then this gentleman was very upset about the bad review. Now here's the thing. Let me go back. Do you see the name of the person who wrote the review? It's David G. Landman, one of the founders of the theater. I mean, his parents founded the theater. So this is another thing that we used to do. We would have readers' theater. Readers' theater is when you stand before the crowd with your scripts and you just read out loud. And The drunkard. Now this is an interesting thing because one of the things that we do every other year now, that we used to do every summer, actually our seasons would only run September through June. And then the summer didn't count as part of the season, and they would do a melodrama every summer. Now we count it as part of the season. And we do them every other year. The Drunkard is interesting because it was the first melodrama ever. Not that we did, ever. It wasn't supposed to be the way that it was received. For years it ran as a temperance play, anti-drinking. And P.T. Barnum himself was the backer, the money guy behind this. He was a big teetotaler. So if it weren't for P.T. Barnum and The Drunkard, we would not have the melodrama as we know it today. So that's why I included that, because we did it that year. Also, Buster Keaton was in a film version of it. So this is Rebecca Landman being elected president of StageCenter, the first woman president. I believe this is 1975? 8 years. I mean, not 8 years, but 9 years before they had a woman president. Now, this is the first year that we did awards. And that there on the left is Donna Racy, and that there on the right is Ed Guthrie. And they were excellent actors, weren't they, Kathy? But this is the first year that we did the awards, and I'm not sure how they did the system at that time. The next year, they had the audiences vote on them. But these were the first winners. Now, I'm getting back into family. That's my thumb. On the left is Jill Stavenhagen. She was a good friend of, well, her family was a good friend of my family. Okay, so remember a little while ago, I said, see this, remember it? This is why. This is the first show that we did more than once. This is the first show we repeated. It was a melodrama. And this is the second. And the reason I posted this one is because this is the first show that my mother saw at the StageCenter Theater. We've been living in College Station for about a year and a half at this point. And my mom had been in theater all her, well, most of her life, all of mine. This is the first show that she saw. And because she saw this show, she got involved. This creepy picture is my good friend Julia Stavenhagen. She is the daughter of the person I pointed out earlier. This is a wig. It's a bad picture. She's a lovely person. This is a demon doll. This is her in Dirty Work at the Crossroads. I'm sorry for the fuzziness. We used to do this thing called, we would have a one-act play competition. We wouldn't participate in it, we would hold it, and people would send us scripts. The first year that we did it actually was nationwide, and all the people that won, no, two of the people, we had 3 winners. 2 of the people that won, one was from California, and I forget what the other one was. And it's not stated for me anywhere, but after that we started doing it just Texas. I'm going to guess because of the volume of number of people sending in scripts. So we would pick 3 winners, and then we would perform the play, all 3 plays. And so we would have the evening of one acts, and the people could come and see their plays performed. This I post because this is the first show that my mom was in. And I worked on it. I was in props and usher. We used to put ushers in the program, apparently. So the reason I post this is because this is a review of the show. And it says, Guthrie as Dr. Seward and Carol Hargis as the saucy maid Jameson give good performances. The reason I point that out is because Jameson was a butler, and they cast my mom in the part and made it a woman instead. So she was the saucy maid when, in fact, it was just a butler. The reason I post this picture is because this is, I think, no mother to guide her. The reason I post this is because I want to show again the family dynamic. The woman that is dressed as a gypsy with her hands behind her back, that I believe Kathy is holding her hands. That is Jill Stavenhagen again. The gentleman in the black and white stripes, that is Lucian Stavenhagen, her son. If you look to the center of the picture, the gentleman in the shiny white blouse is my brother. And if you look down there into that group of children that are gypsies, I'm not there, but I should be. I was in that show. I don't know, maybe I was using the bathroom, I don't know. Anyway, but above, You see how everybody's all looking towards the direction of the gypsy woman, except for the woman above, next to the guy with the white boater hat. That's Kathy Allen. She's looking at the camera, posing for the camera instead of posing for the picture. Now this is an article written because we were having a membership drive at the time. And this is a picture of Robbie Taylor and Delphia Manning. Delphia Manning was my best friend's mom. So, I mean, I've made friends with my friend at school, and then I went to the theater that night and saw her there, and it was very strange. But not during this is a year or two before. But Delphia Manning, she played Essie in You Can't Take It With You the first time we did the show. And the gentleman holding her foot is Robbie Taylor, and his family was involved in it a lot too. He had a sister Sherry and a brother Richard, and they were all involved. I'm sorry for this is the state of affairs for our books right now. We're one of the books right now, so I apologize for the gross mildew stuff. It makes it colorful, but whatever. In 1984, suddenly we were told we had to leave our building. So we scrambled, had to look around, went to Allen Academy, went to First Presbyterian Church, the College Station Community Center, and then we got a new place at the Palace. Yay! September of 1985, we were in the Palace. We did a vaudeville review. That's my mom being in the vaudeville review. And then all of a sudden, the roof caved in. So the way the story was always been presented to me, it was like 2 nights before opening night. It was the middle of the night. We lost everything. Actually, what happened was it was a Saturday. They did normally have rehearsals on a Saturday. Wanda was the choreographer. She was taking a vaudeville trip on a one-day appearance in another town. Instead of gathering at the theater to meet to go to the place, they met somewhere else. Rick Lamon, it says Lamon, but I'm sure that's Landman. He was the director for Oklahoma. He canceled the rehearsal that day at 11 a.m. Supposed to be rehearsal, didn't have it. Anyway, close to 50 people would have been there. Another choreographer and technical advisor were both kept away from the theater for other reasons, preparing for something else. So anyway, all of this stuff, these people were all supposed to be there. And for reason upon reason, 50 people were not there, and the roof caved in. So we got the place in September of '85. This is May of '86. We had a home for 8 months. In that time, we did great things. And I think possibly the best set I've ever seen in my life was Greater Tuna. That set was probably 30 feet tall, you think? It was huge. And people stayed on stage the whole time, and they would just shine the light to the part of the stage that they were on. It was like a tree. It was, if you're not familiar with Greater Tuna, it's basically people calling into a radio station and talking. This is more pictures of the collapse. So this is just talking about us picking through things again. Now, I don't know what happened with this at all. Maybe Kathy knows, but somebody was going to present us with some land out in the Nantucket area, and then we never went there, and I don't know why. There's nothing in the scrapbook about that. So this is another thing showing about how we moved around. And if you look in the bottom right corner, if you remember the picture of Delphia Manning, who was the ballerina with her foot in the air, that's her daughter, my best friend. And again, that's spotlighting the family aspect of it. So there was this woman named Kathy McWhorter, and she was going to be directing Alone Together, but because we didn't have a permanent home, the decision was made for the show to be done later in the season. So I have another thing to read here. It's the thing on the right. I'm going to read it to you. The inability of StageCenter to begin its season on time because it has no home is distressing. Community theater is not the matter of greatest importance to Bryan College Station at the moment or ever, but its absence is a blemish that leaves us somehow incomplete. Cities, like people, can become too practical for their own good. They put on hard shells and sharp edges, they work hard, and they do what has to be done. But there's more to life than what we must do. Along the way, the cliche advises, we should take time to smell the roses, cities as well as people. Why can't StageCenter search for a home become an opportunity for the community? I'm not emotional, I'm choking. Why can't it be a project to lift our spirits? It makes no sense that historic structures are allowed to decay and new ones to stand empty when combining them with community theater and other lively endeavors, we could cultivate a rose garden where only brambles grow. Community theater, after all, doesn't have to be in a building that stands silent except when productions are in rehearsal or on stage. Art can be exhibited there, music can be played there, crafts can be perfected there, life can be fun there. With imagination and a few dollars well spent, StageCenter could have a home not only for itself but to share with others. And come to think of it, that's a pretty practical idea, isn't it? And that was from the Eagle editorial board. And it just shows how important culture and theater and art is to a community. At this point, we got into our new place in the Westgate Shopping Center. And our first show there was Crimes of the Heart. Then we did a show called The Passion of Dracula. That is my first show as a grown-up. I was the female lead. The review for this show is not in the scrapbook because it was a bad show. If anybody remembers the theater reviews that Jim Butler used to give, basically he liked everything except this show. He did say that I, and the guy who played Renfield were like the only things in it, but it was a fun show and I don't care. So then again, we moved again to East 29th Street. It says East 28th Street, but it's East 29th Street. Anyway, so then we opened that location with a vaudeville show as well. This is my cat sitting on the scrapbooks while I was trying to work on this, and I just thought you should know. This is me in Barefoot in the Park. Down in the bottom left is Chaz Pittman. In the top middle, that woman is Cheryl Willis. Now, Chaz Pittman is the director of Harvey, which opens October 4th. And the woman behind them played my mother in a show, and she's playing Vita Louise Simmons, the sister of Elwood P. Dowd in the current production. There's Harold. And that's why I actually put this picture up. And there he is again as a villain. And then Harold, for those of you who don't come to a lot of shows or any, Harold is basically a staple at StageCenter. Well, in the theater community in general, he does shows at theater company as well. This is an article that he did. And the reason I put this one up, apart from the fact that, hey, here's Harold, is because this is the first mention in our scrapbook of Imagination Station. Now, Imagination Station is now theater company, but in this article, it was a new organization dedicated to producing plays for children. And it was started by some people, Pam Wiley and some people from StageCenter, or who had been participants at StageCenter before starting that. Now, this is when we moved to the new place downtown on Main Street. So we've got this new place, and we at this point have been around for 25 years. And I put this up because the haunted house that you see that we actually participated in this one, and this was in the theater that we used to have before the one that we just moved out of. And that haunted house is getting ready to open downtown. The proceeds benefit us. So if you look in the middle there, that gentleman is M.A. Sterling. He is in charge of Brazos Valley Troupe. This is a melodrama that he was in, and one of the things that the reason that the headline says what it says is because whenever StageCenter does melodramas, we always take the place names from places around the area, like Snug, North Zulch, things like that, Cut and Shoot. as we like to put Texas names on it. If you look to your left here, that is Tommy Sadowski. I believe he goes as Thomas now, big fancy TV and movie actor. But he started out in our area doing shows at both StageCenter and Theater Company. And so this is the only picture we have in the scrapbook of him. This is where our first show in the Main Street location. There's MA again. Now, this is from 1994, this flyer that we made, and it says we're 30. So as of 1994, we were 30 years old, and I'm going with that. So this is something I didn't know about until 3 or 4 days ago. The reason that Brazos Valley Troupe exists, I knew that Wanda and MA had started this theater group, but I didn't know it was because of a dispute over cabaret and money. At the time, all of our shows were funded by the ticket prices. And now we do underwriters, so it wouldn't be that big of a deal. But back then, it was not known that the royalties would be affordable. So Wanda wanted to do more musicals, and Rebecca didn't want the theater to, go under trying to pay for the royalties for musicals because they are fabulously expensive. Well, worth it, but expensive. So Wanda left the board and started troupe with MA, and they were doing mostly musicals, and StageCenter was, at this point, and says in this article, all drama. And I don't think she means drama, I think she means straight plays. This is the location on Main Street, and this is the location at 201B West 26th Street. You go up the stairs all the way up, or you take the elevator of terror and go to the 3rd floor. We just left that. Our movers came and got our stuff 2 weeks ago and put it in our new location right there on the left. We're not in Casa Rodriguez. So if you look to the left, you see the sign that says Superior Furniture. It looks very small. It is very small, but you would not believe how big it looks now with our new stage in it. We've got a wall up that we had built special to separate the lobby from the house. And we are going to lose about 20 seats, but we didn't sell them out anyway, so we're not going to miss them. However, we might now that we're in a location that people can get to, because we are on the ground floor. We don't have to worry about people having to deal with stairs or elevators to get up there. And a lot of people have dropped off just because they couldn't get into the theater. And I don't blame them. So anyway, that's where we are. Isn't that pretty? StageCenter Theater, and I thank you.